Hello, my frugivores. I want to talk about John McDougall. First of all, pushing people in direction towards a more plant-based diet. John has been at the forefront of pushing a fruit substitute called starch, a cheap imitation of fruit. Thank you so much. Much gratitude. People who use a starch-based diet, okay, if that's what you want to do, continue doing it. If you've reached your goals and you're happy there, continue on. But John McDougall has made some claims that I don't agree with. First of all, I want to tell you that John McDougall is not vegan. He doesn't promote a vegan diet. He promotes a plant-based diet, and he wants to disassociate himself from other vegans, from the vegan movement in general. This is a strategy to widen his audience, to gain paleo people over and meat eaters alike. It's a strategy on his part. Maybe not even for financial reasons. He genuinely wants to have. He disassociates himself with the vegan movement and goes on the record as saying he eats turkey every other Thanksgiving. John says that a raw diet is not sustainable. A diet of fruits and vegetables are not sustainable. This claiming that potatoes, rice, corn, and everything else are more sustainable than any other food, and he's incorrect. There is better, and it's called fruit. Fruit is more sustainable than potatoes. Here's the difference. Fruit produces more yield per acre than any other food on the planet. A mango tree will grow 50 feet high and produce tons and tons of food. Per acre, nothing beats fruit. Here's the difference. Besides the fact when you grow potatoes, grains, and tubers, you're killing the plant and taking away its storage organs. Really. Plants don't have feelings, remember? But still, you're killing a living thing to take its food. Now, fruit, on the other hand, grows year after year. That same tree will produce fruit year after year, and it gives back. Fruit trees give back, where potatoes don't give back. You have to cut the land down to size, and potatoes, just like grains and everything else, rob the topsoil. Fruit trees pull minerals from deep within the ground. The roots go very deep. They pull the minerals in, and the leaves that fall create a biofilm of bacteria on the surface that regenerate further for even keep the process going. The other thing is water consumption of fruit versus rice, grains, potatoes is way lower than root vegetables. Not only is the water consumption lower, but trees hold in water in forests. So wherever you cut forests down, usually to grow grains and stuff, where you cut them down, it turns to desert very fast. Where was once a tropical, beautiful area will turn to desert. And the reason for that is because it shades the area and it holds the waters in, keeps the streams flowing, and the shade of it keeps a very humid, moist environment. So you create forests, beautiful tropical environments. Trees do this. And not to mention the ecosystems that they create with all the little animals and everything that eat them and live there. When you cut them all down, you're destroying them. Whether it be for grains, tubers, livestock, whatever, you're destroying the planet. You're destroying our oxygen sources. You're destroying ecosystem for other animals. Fruit is the most vegan food on the planet. Like I said, when you don't have to kill the tree to get the fruit, and or the seed, and they keep producing year after year after year after year. They cause the least amount of harm. So McDougall, starch is not the most sustainable food on the planet. It doesn't produce the most food per acre. It destroys ecosystems. Just like cooked food, it runs off the water of the land and turns it into desert, just like it does to your body. And no, I'm not buying that. Sorry. Next. John says simple sugars found in fruit raise blood sugars. And this, again, goes to show you that doctors don't know what the hell they're talking about. And we've got many people doing blood sugar tests to prove it. You can look it up, blood sugar test. take a little bit of blood before, eat a smoothie full of bananas and dates about this big, and take a blood sugar test afterwards. See what happens. Does not happen that way. Your blood sugars do not rise because the fiber slows down the absorption of sugar. Anybody who knows anything knows that. But he claims no, it's simple sugar, it burns fast, and it's not sustainable, and it won't sustain big civilizations, blah, 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 blah. Incorrect. Then we go on to something here, really the only thing that starch eaters can use here is the copy of amylase in our saliva, the many copies of amylase in some people. Some people don't have that many copies of amylase. And what this is a starch digesting enzyme in our mouth, because starch is primarily digested in our mouth, and there's an enzyme, salivary amylase, and this is his basis for saying humans are starchivores. Complete nonsense. As you will know, that's in survival situations, fruit, it may not always be ripe, and it may be starchy. And you may be able to need to extract nutrients from that fruit even though it's not quite ready yet. That explains salivary amylase and the copies of it where he says, oh, chimps and gorillas. By the way, he referred to chimps and gorillas as our ancestors and lesser primates. I know that's a term they use loosely, but I don't care for that term. They're not less or anything. And they don't have that many copies of salivary amylase. And I will tell you that this is primarily because of our domestication, of our environment. If starch is there for however long, well, eventually we're going to evolve ways to digest it. If starch is in your environment and you grew up, you can't control where you were born, when you were born. Wherever you grow, if their starch was there, over time, you will people will have more copies of the gene. It doesn't mean that we can no longer digest fruit, which we've used for 64 million years. It doesn't mean that we've gone away from that. It just means we've added an adaptation to survive in an environment, and we have not moved away from fruit. Starch did not become our mainstay, and McDougall even uses it in his terms. He says the human diet is a diet of starch, fruit, and vegetables. He has to throw fruit in there because you can't have a healthy diet without fruit. You can try. Says you could live on potatoes, that's fine, yeah, but who would want to? You have to add stuff to it. Eat plain potatoes and see how you like it, which takes us into something else. I'm going to talk about fire later. I'm going to make a whole video about that, debunking what he said about fire. But right now, this is part one. I'm going to keep it simple. He says a raw vegan diet leads to high fat, eating nuts and seeds. Because this is old school thinking here. This is back in the day, a lot of raw foodists would eat nuts and seeds, and that they pretty much would live on that, and meaning it'd be a high fat diet. But this is because they haven't discovered. This is old school thinking when fruit sugars are bad for you. Sugar is bad, and so everybody's running from sugar, eating nuts and seeds, and that's what made up the raw diet primarily. Back in the day. We're not there anymore. We've discovered our natural diet, rediscovered I should say, fruits and vegetables, and fruit on average less than 8% fat, less than 8% protein on average. The numbers are probably lower than that, so when you eat a fruit-based diet you have no worries of leading to a high-fat diet. But I will argue the opposite is true. Eating a starch-based diet leads to more fat because you're not satisfied. I've eaten potatoes. It gets boring. You have to put salt all over it. Eventually, you go reach for the vegan A's to make some potato salad or put some, that's why people want to put butter on there, because it's boring. How can our natural food be boring and not satisfying? We're not starchivores. We have eaten starch in the past. It has played its part, but we never evolved away from our natural diet of fruit. And this is just on another topic here. He goes on to say that that because of starch, we've built these huge civilizations, and we're able to populate the earth and live in places that we're not supposed to be. And is this a good thing? Is this a good thing here, that we live in places we're not supposed to live, rape and pillage the lands that we're not supposed to be on, and then to top it off, I will argue this: starch, cooking and eating starch, has led to animal agriculture. That's a whole nother video. Whole nother video. When the starch wasn't available and they ran out of tubers, they started looking at that goat. Started looking at, yeah, starch and cooked food led to animal agriculture. Believe it or not, there's no other way around it besides the fact that, you know, because you were cooking it then and adding spices and salt to it, well, we could do that to meat then too, couldn't we? Where normally you would have ate it raw if you were in famine. So, John McDougall has said some things that aren't correct, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. Another thing he says here, John McDougall makes the claim that cooking food, that humans are a cooked food animal. Quote. That phrase alone is an oxymoron. No animal cooks food. So that doesn't, out of the millions of animals who live and have roamed the earth from the beginning of time, we're the first one to cook food, and we're better, and the rest of the primates are lesser primates according to him. Bullshit. This is the truth. Fire does not make us human. It never made us human. In fact, it's caused more problems than it ever created. It led to animal agriculture. It has led to destroying the earth with all these machines and things that are completely unnecessary. Granted, I know it. Without it, I wouldn't be talking to you now, and I'm thankful for some of the things, but it's been highly misused. And to prove humans are not a cooked food animal, that implies that fire is inherent to us. Now wrap your brain around this for a minute. All the animals on the planet are born with the tools they need to feed themselves, even while pregnant. Get this. There are tribes around the world today that do not have fire. They don't know how to start a fire. They don't want to start a fire. And their ancestors didn't start a fire. So logically, they didn't just spring up. We're talking Borneo, some places in South America, New Guinea. They don't use fire. Some of these tribes don't use fire. They never used fire. They eat their food raw. There are raw civilizations on the planet right now whose lineage dates back before man discovered fire. So he is incorrect. By logic alone will tell you that he's incorrect. Humans are not a cooked food animal, because we have humans today not cooking their food and been doing so since the beginning of our ancestry. So that is a, you know, I'm going to blow that one right out of the water. That's not who we are.
Frugivore by nature, frugivore by night, frugivore behavior. Frugivore